alveolar macrophage. They will eat them by phagocytosis, not eating. And then also some of them may stay behind and they may color the surface of the lung dark. And if you have a cadaver from a heavy smoke and you see this lung, it looks almost black. It's very dark. Usually it's a more in a young person, a healthy person, or someone who has been in clean air, not too much dust, not too much smoke. It's more rosy sort of color. It's more like this, a tissue color, more like this sort of color. Here, a rosy sort of, even lighter than this one. Okay. Then, the last section were contaminants inspired by inspired air, where we breathe them in and out. And we say we have mechanical barriers. And if we turn around the page, next page, table 28+1, pulmonary defense mechanisms. Now this is very important. Can we read this section? Sam, can you read this table plus section?
Structure or substance. Upper respiratory tract. Mechanism of defense to maintain constant temperature and purification of gas into the lung tract and remove for alcohol. Some bacteria and viruses transform spinal.
Okay, noxious, everyone knows noxious is like poison, no? Like heat, noxious gases. Okay, next one.
Nasolia and turbulence.
Turbinates, everyone understands turbinates? Here, in the nasal cavity, the concave turbinates. And the nasal here. Not sure. I have a lot. It's filtering out big things, like insects or big particles.
I believe it's the mucus right here. They project right here and small time for injury tract. Was following control actually average delivery areas. And severe proper mucus bracket. For mucus brackets, treatment trachea focus on injury tract was following control and vaginal average delivery for severe proper mucus bracket and the tract chemical covered lines where they can swallow and expectorate. For irritants, receptor in areas or naturals, stimulation by chemical or mechanical irritant trigger sneeze reflex, which result in repeat uniform of kilogram from muscle passage.
Okay, sneezing. You know the difference between sneezing and coughing? Sneezing is from the nose. Coughing is from the lower airway. Sneezing is the upper airways. Now we must distinguish upper airway and lower airway. The upper airway we start here, so we have the nasal part, and we say the nasal part, and at the back we have the nasopharynx. Here. So this is the nasal part, here this is the nasopharynx. Then we have the oral section and the oropharynx. And then from the epiglottis down to here to the cricoid cartilage, the laryngeal pharynx, because this is a larynx, the voice box. Here we enter the trachea, here we have the esophagus. Behind it is this, our vertebral column. So laryngopharynx, oropharynx, nasopharynx. These are the three parts of the upper airway, and of course the whole nasal and oral cavity. Usually we breathe through the nose because this is the best filter. But when we work heavy, we don't get enough air, and then we open the mouth, or when we do squats, and then we start through the mouth. You can get higher amounts of air in and out quickly, but they are not the other. The filtering is not so good. And the humidification, that means making it moist. You must get it saturated with water when it goes into the tissue, is not so good. And also the heating up to get the same temperature as the body is not so efficient as if it goes through the nose. But of course it's important. Sometimes our nose gets blocked by mucus, and then we must use the mouth for breathing. Okay, we continue to read the last mechanisms. The end of the, okay, it was a bit loud, here we go, you are to the end of the table. Okay, so we have the upper respiratory tract mucosa, nasal passage turbinates, mucus blanket cilia, irritant receptors, irritant in the nares, in the nose, irritant receptors in the trachea and large airways, and the alveolar macrophase. Maybe we should work our way through. The mucosa is the lining on the inside. And the mucosa is, of course, very important for humidifying the air, heating the air up or cooling it down. When we breathe in, usually the air outside is cooler than inside the body, where we have 37 degrees. Most of the time, outside is less than 37. In this case, we must heat it up to 37 degrees. We must get the water vapor in, and humidify it, and we must get the particles out. When we go out, there's dust, there's always some particles in the air. We must filter them out. And that's where we need the mucous membranes. They provide the moisture. They provide mucus, which is a sort of proteins with water, a sticky surface. It's produced by seromucous glands and the submucosa, the layer underneath the mucosa, and by goblet cells, special cells that produce loads of mucus. For this purpose, in the respiratory tract, we have a special epithelium, making up the top layer of the mucosa. Do you know the name of this epithelium? Yes, yes. But what type of epithelium do we have in the trachea and in the nose? That's not stratified squamous. Stratified squamous would be flat, but they are like this. Columnar. And it's pseudostratified columnar. Pseudostratified columnar in the nose. Good picture of the nose. Somewhere. The first part here, this is the vestibule. Here for this part you are correct. Here we have gas and because here people go in and clean and things, and this is a bit of squamous epithelium. Okay, so flat cells. But then here we have pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium. Up here, this is a creepiform plate. We have a special area, the olfactory epithelium with the smell receptors. This is for the smell. But the others is a pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium, and it is ciliated. It has these cilia on top that can move, and they can make a movement. And it's many, like a rice field. And when the wind goes, they all bend and bend back. And it's the same. They move in one direction and move the mucus. The things get stuck on the mucus, and the mucus gets moved. And those here, they move backwards. And when we come here, we swallow it, and it goes into the stomach. The stomach is acidic, pH 1, 2, and kills most of the bacteria and stuff. And they don't do us any harm. Here, we have the same type of epithelium, but the way it's propelled upwards, here, and then we swallow, and it goes to the stomach, so that we get rid of it. In between here and the oropharynx, we have what you said, the squamous epithelium. Now stratified squamous, because here we have friction, the food coming, passing by, we cannot have ciliated stuff. So this part has, but here we also don't need to transport mucus, we can just swallow it anyway in this part. And when we go further down into the trachea, main bronchus, bronchioles, then it turns from pseudo-columnar to pure columnar, and at the very end, as they get very, very tiny, they get smaller, and instead of columnar, the next level down would be cuboidal. They become cuboidal, and finally in the alveoli, this is squamous, with just one layer, no, not stratified, simple, and of course, as we go further down, the cilia become less and less. Maybe we should show this stuff. Here. On our next page, if we look at this picture here, in your book, if you turn around, you see this here. This is pseudo-stratified columnar. They are columnar, they are high, but not everyone reaches the surface, but all are attached to the underlying basement membrane. So by definition, it looks like several layers, but all attached to this, and it's called pseudo. It just looks like it. It's not real, not really multiple layers. And then we see the cilia on top, and they move the mucus. And if we go further down the airways, you see the cilia becomes less, the cells get smaller, and become cuboidal finally. And at the end, in the alveoli, they are squamous. If we go to our, can you just ask me? Oh yes, there you have it. Can you just show this page here? Just want to show that everyone sees this is exactly what we need. Just to remind you, what does it mean? Stratified. Now this is a simple epithelium. Now we have the basal surface, a basement membrane, and then we have one layer of cells, simple. Several layers of cells stratified. And then, depending on what shape the cells, we have simple squamous or stratified squamous. That depends on what shape has the apical. The top layer is a top layer like this, then it's a squamous stratified. Is the top layer like this, then it's a cuboidal stratified. And if they are not just squared but high like this, then we say this is columnar. video. Okay. The dust that goes in usually I would go. Most big particles will be filtered out in the nasal area already. So everything that's really big. Up to only particles that are 5 micrometer also would maybe pass through the nose and go on. But this is 5 micrometer is very small. It's a red blood cell is something like in diameter, something like 7.5 or so. So it's very small, smaller than a cell. Then if it goes into the trachea and up to here, it's between 2 micrometer to 0.2 micrometer. Those would all settle down. Because they all have a certain weight. And when the air passes by, they would settle down and stick on the surface in here. So in this area, you would get 2 micrometer to 0.2 micrometer filtered out. The bigger ones would be filtered up further out. And down here in the alveolar, you only get very, very, very tiny things which are less than 0.2 micrometer. This is extremely small. And they get cleared off by which cell? Which cell eats this sort of stuff? Correct. The alveolar macrophages. Now macro is big, phages eaters, the big eaters. And the alveolar macrophages eats them. But the alveolar macrophages, they eat this dust and thing so that it doesn't cause disease. But if this is overwhelmed, you can get disease like silicosis. This means dust, small dust particles. People in the desert or so, inhaling dust all the time, they can get silicosis of the lung. Or there used to be workers with asbestos. When you cut this and you have the dust and it can even cause cancer, then you get an asbestosis of your lung. The alveolar macrophages that are here, so they eat the dust and dirt, and where do they go? You must get rid of this. The macrophages, they can crawl like a amoeba a little bit, and they gradually move up here. Down here we don't have cilia, so they have to move basically. But when they come to here, there are cilia and mucus, and then they get stuck up and they get transported out here, and then we swallow them. And it's a huge amount, I think it's something like 2 million an hour or so that we swallow. So all the time, alveolar macrophages go the other way around. We swallow them to get our lungs permanently cleaned. The alveolar are sterile. Okay, there's nothing in here. They must be sterile. We don't want a pneumonia, a lung infection. And because of this cleaning process, it's kept sterile. Everything goes out. So those defense mechanisms that we discussed here are very important. Now, if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Let's go on and read the section on conducting airways. Now, conducting means transporting the air. Conducting airways. Meaning, go on reading.
Conducting airways. So conducting airways allow air into and out of the gas exchange structure of the the nasopharynx or oropharynx, and related structures are often called the upper airway. These structures are lined with a ciliated mucosa that warm and humidifies inspired air and overflowing particles from it. The mouth and the oropharynx are used for ventilation when the nose is obstructed or when increased flow is required, for example, during exercise. Filtering and humidifying are not as efficient with mouth breathing.
Yes, thank you. And maybe we just turn around and look at figure 28.1. Look at this figure that we have here, and we review the structures of the conducting airway. Now here, down here in the alveoli, we have the exchange part of the airway, and all this up to here is conducting airway. Okay. We distinguish the upper and the lower respiratory tract. So you can say up here, nasal area, nasal cavity, nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx, or just pharynx for all three of them. Up to here, this is all upper respiratory tract. And then from, there's the vocal cord actually here. Here, in this area is the vocal cord where we produce sound. From here on downwards, then we have the lower respiratory tract. And in clinical practice, we distinguish between R, upper respiratory tract infection, URTA, or lower respiratory tract infection, LRTA. We have to distinguish those. We have many upper respiratory tract infections, all the common flu, no? When the runny nose and watery eyes, runny nose, you often have a virus infection. There are over 200 viruses that can make you a sore throat and a runny nose. Sometimes we have our glands infected. What are the glands? Well, this is another protective mechanism we haven't really discussed. There are a number of glandular tissues which are sort of in tissues that harbor immune cells, lymphocytes, to fight off disease. The two biggest ones are sublingual gland is don't mix it up. Sublingual is digestive juice. No? Parodic gland, digestive juice. The protective glands, no? The lymphatic tissue glands. We have on each side in the back. Here we have the left and right tonsil that you can see. And there is another one. So this is for the single E. Then there is a gland at the back of the tongue. Then there is a tonsil here. This is a bigger one. This is a smaller one. Then up here in this is a palate, and above it here, there is a connection to the middle ear, where the auditory, the obstructing tube comes and opens into the pharynx. And there we have tubal tonsils. I'm not sure if you heard about it. Just above this opening is a small tubal tonsil to prevent bacteria going in here and going into the ear, which would make a mid-ear infection, a middle ear infection, because they would end up straight in the middle ear. So then we have at the back here a little bit bigger one, the adenoid, another one further up. So there are at least 6 or so of glands which also protect us when bacteria goes in. Then then we have the trachea, the left, the right, and the left main bronchus, and here we have where it bifurcates, that is the spine. That is called the carina, this here. This is called the carina. Carina is also a name for a girl. My first daughter's name is Carina. The meaning is the beautiful, okay? But in the medical world, Carina is this area. I think it comes from like a ship or so that's sailing through the water or so. There is one thing you should know. The trachea is about 10 to 12 centimeters, about 1.5 to 2 centimeters on the inside. So maybe the size of your thumb inside. When it goes into those two, of course, when it bifurcates, the diameter goes a little bit down here. But there is a difference between the left and the right side, which is not really obviously shown in this picture. In reality, think about it. When we inhale a foreign body, okay, if it's big, sometimes people after a meal, instead of going down here, it goes in here and they choke. And there is a maneuver called Heimlich maneuver where you add pressure here to expel it. If the bolus is stuck in here, if you have something smaller, particularly peanuts in children, don't give peanuts to little children because some of them don't end up in the stomach, they may end up in here. And where do they go usually? Do they go to the left or do they go to the right? Do you know? Yes, they go to the right. Most of them. That is because the right one is a little bit bigger, it is shorter, and it is more straight. The left one is smaller, longer, and less straight. So if they fall in here, they usually end up on the right side. That is also important for the anesthetist, and they may ask you this question. When they put in the tube to ventilate the patient during operation, you must put it through here in the tube, then you must pass